Mike? There's a mic behind you, Mike.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. Minister, in your platform, you talked about I guess the creation of an infrastructure bank.
Yeah.
And I know the plans have yet to be rolled out for that. I know certainly I'm one of many developers in the room who have a lot of equity invest. There's no shortage of funding for from the private sector. I'm wondering what role you see for the infrastructure bank in providing infrastructure in the future for Canadians.
Well, thank you for that question. I touched a little bit in my remarks the reason that we want to create the infrastructure bank and the things that were mentioned in the platform. One thing that we have heard from municipalities is their ability to raise financing and the cost of financing. In some provinces, there are provincial authorities that can borrow on behalf of municipalities at low rates. In some cases, they can't. So even the federal government's borrowing is lower compared to those provincial bodies. So one idea is to provide the low-cost loan. In some cases, loan guarantees in areas where we can't fund a project through grants, but we can provide that assurance to them that that we can backstop the loans. And the third one, which you will find relevant, is how we untap the private sector investments. How do we encourage more private sector investment into infrastructure, whether they're pension funds or equity funds, whatever those are. We have not been as creative in unlocking those potentials. So that's why we want to tread very carefully on the design of this bank. We want to engage many of you in this room to get your idea what do you think are the best ways to do that. But the idea is provide support, but also ensure that that we are able to engage the private sector to unlock the resources that we have in Canada to help us build the infrastructure that our communities need. Governments can do so much, but if we can leverage private sector, we can definitely stretch those dollars. Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Sohi. I just had one question about the P3. You're saying certain projects will have and certain won't. Could you explain a little bit about the criteria for which projects will receive the P3?
Well, the projects that we own as a federal government, right? We look at the various procurement methods, and I mentioned two projects, the largest projects, and that where the P3 arrangement really worked to deliver on time, deliver on budget. I think those are the two criteria that we want to apply to infrastructure delivery. But what I want to stress is that in my department, the vast majority of the projects we support are not the projects that we own or manage or we procure. We support projects that are either built by the municipalities or communities or provinces. So we feel that we need to build the capacity of those organizations to broaden their procurement tools, right? But we should not be imposing on them what we as a federal government feel or think that this is the best way to deliver that project. Because the local governments know the realities of their own communities, how they engage with their community. Because there's a lot of community involvement in the design of the plans. In some cases, there's more buy-in to have P3's engaged. In some cases, there's less, right? So we do not want to put local governments in a position where they feel that their local autonomy is being taken away by the federal government at a time when our government's support, when you look at the life cycle cost of the projects, right? federal government's support is still not at a level where municipalities and provinces put the amount of resources they put on. Another thing that we are doing, I think this will you will find relevant, is that we are encouraging behavior at local level that looks at the project not only during the construction of the project, but the whole life cycle of the project. So when you design a project, keeping in mind that you have to run it for 30 years, you will look at for more innovation. You will look at for more alignment between design, construction, the maintenance, and the operation of the system. So I think we are building incentives through our support to them to have those kind of options explored instead of just dictating what they should do. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Larry McCabe, Administrator, Town of Godrey, and a former member of the Canadian Council. Just, you mentioned asset management plans. Could you tell us the importance of asset management plans? We're all working on those in municipalities and cities. Just the importance in the selection process, please.
Yeah. Thank you. I served on city council for almost a decade. Even though our city is large enough and has a budget that is large enough in a way that when times are tough, you can still continue to focus on good asset management practices. But for a lot of municipalities, when times are tough, what gets cut are those kind of services where citizens don't see the direct impact of service cuts, but they see the long-term implication. So what we want to do is create a fund that every municipality can access. So they don't have to use their own funds. So this will be a dedicated funding available to municipalities to plan, first of all, know what kind of condition their existing infrastructure is in. Once they have that knowledge, then they can plan how much they need to continue to invest to keep that infrastructure in a good state of repair, but also opportunities for them to optimize the existing infrastructure. Because there's a lot of infrastructure that is not being used to the fullest of its capacity, right? So that's another thing that we hope that this asset management plan will help them do. The third part is how do we use new technologies to optimize the existing infrastructure. So we believe that once they know the condition of their infrastructure, they will also look at innovation to better optimize it and modernize the infrastructure. I'll give you one example from my own experience. As someone who relied on public transit to get around, and also someone who drove bus for almost 15 years. One thing that really used to bug me was that you have a full bus, then you have half-empty bus running behind on the same route. Why is that? Because we don't use technology to actually monitor where the bus should be, right? I think use of technology to kind of encourage that kind of asset management and also optimization and deployment of the resources and existing use of the infrastructure. We believe that it will encourage a behavior that we have not seen in the past. So there's a dedicated funding managed by FCM, right, where municipalities can directly apply.
Irving LeBlanc, Assembly of First Nations. Many of the programs in the past have included First Nations in the description, municipalities and First Nations. Certainly would hope that after 20 years of 2% cap has really impacted First Nations infrastructure, and the First Nations infrastructure is as much or more acute as the municipalities. Certainly they would hopefully they would be able to access this special asset management funding to help improve their infrastructure base.
Yeah, thank you for flagging that. We'll definitely. It is my understanding that they can, right? Well, we will ensure that they're able to do so, because you're touching on something that is so critical to our government, is to close that gap that has existed for decades. The things that people living in major urban centers take for granted are not available to many of the indigenous communities in our country, whether water, wastewater, or solid waste, or housing infrastructure, or transportation infrastructure. So yeah, we'll definitely make sure that we are able to do so. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So, Minister, I'd love you to go back to Cabinet and let them know that you were speaking today at an event that was organized by the Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnerships, but I want to make sure you're on time for Cabinet so that we don't end up with a negative reputation.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you so much. And one more thing that I want to stress, which I did talk in my comments, is something that we are doing differently from the way things were done in the past, is allow in phase one resources for communities to actually do more design and planning for the long term. Right, I think that is very critical. That we again identified a gap in the capacity of the municipalities to actually do their long term planning to take on the opportunities on some of the big transformative projects. So thank you so much for including me.
Thank you so very much.